My older sister has been a model for several years and has a decent following on Instagram. Because of her following, she has been able to make some good side money through companies who would pay her to promote their product. Usually it was clothing, but sometimes it was makeup or some type of beauty product. Over the years, she became so well known on Instagram that she made a lot of connections with other people in the social media world and even some YouTubers. She was living in Los Angeles for a short period of time when she got invited to a big party hosted by a famous YouTube vlogger. The party was going to be held at the YouTuber's Los Angeles mansion, and not just anyone was invited. You had to know somebody to get in. My sister knew that I had been a fan of this YouTuber for years and offered to fly me out to Los Angeles for the weekend so that I could go to the party with her. Of course, we knew there were likely going to be a ton of people at the party, and there was no guarantee I would even get the chance to meet the YouTuber, but I didn't care. Just being in the same house as him would be a dream come true for me. So of course I accepted my sister's offer to fly me out. My flight to Los Angeles went smoothly, and my sister picked me up at the airport when I arrived. She drove me back to her apartment, which was located no more than 10 minutes away from where the party was going to be held. That evening, we spent hours trying on various outfits and trying to decide what to wear. My sister was nice enough to let me borrow her clothes since I knew little about what was fashionable at the time. She even curled my hair and helped me do my makeup. By the time she was done, I felt like a whole new person and was now more confident than ever. While we were driving to the party, my sister coached me on how to behave while we were there. She told me to stick by her side and not to drink any drinks that I didn't make myself. I agreed, planning not to drink at all because I was too worried about embarrassing myself in front of the YouTuber or anyone else who was there. I thought my excitement was going to bubble over when my sister pulled onto a long driveway leading up to the most gorgeous, magnificent house I had ever seen. It was enormous, with large pillars out front, multiple garages, and even a fountain. It was clear that a team of people had probably been hired to do the upkeep on the grounds, as the yard was perfectly manicured with a blooming garden. My sister parked where all the other cars were located, a short walk from the house. My jaw dropped as I noticed how fancy all the other cars were. It was clear by the Ferraris and Lamborghinis parked that the guests there at the party had money. I felt a little bit of nervousness in my stomach as I wondered how I was going to fit in with all these people at the party who clearly lived very different lives than I did. I was just a college kid from Ohio, hanging out with a bunch of people who were famous models and social media personalities. My sister grabbed my hand to comfort me as we made our way to the front door. Part of me was worried we would be turned away for not being famous enough, but a young blonde woman at the door who quickly noticed my sister and squealed in excitement before rushing over to greet us. She wrapped my sister up in a hug and then warmly greeted me, welcoming me to the home. She told us where we could find the drinks and snacks and told us we were free to partake in any of the other activities going on at the house. There were plenty of amenities at the house. There was everything from an enormous pool to a hot tub, tennis court, basketball court, an enormous flat-screen television. The guests were all wandering about, drinking, swimming, and chatting excitedly, and there was great energy in the air. My sister walked with me to the beverage station and poured herself a drink while I grabbed a water bottle. We then sat and talked with some of the people she knew at the party. During the conversation, my sister mentioned how much I loved the YouTuber who the party was thrown by. The girl was nice enough to offer to introduce me to him and told me he was upstairs with a few other guys. I was so nervous as we walked up the stairs and made our way down the long corridor. We approached the door, which the girl lightly knocked on. A voice from inside yelled, "Come in." We walked into the room and I came face to face with the YouTuber himself. He was sitting on a couch looking comfortable and casual. His infamous vlog camera was sitting by his side while he sipped on sparkling water. The girl and I walked over to him and she introduced me, telling him that I was a big fan. I thought the YouTuber would be creeped out since I wasn't a model or anyone impressive, but instead he was super genuine and nice. He immediately stood up, a big smile on his face, and gave me a friendly hug. He then asked if I had ever been to his house before and I told him I hadn't. He offered to give me a tour, which of course I said yes to. After showing me around the upstairs, he led me back to the ground level where all the partygoers were. He was just about to show me what he said was his most favorite room in the house when there was a loud banging at the front door. Everyone looked around in confusion and a hush fell over the house. I looked at the YouTuber and he appeared concerned, and it was clear he wasn't expecting anyone else. Suddenly, the door was kicked down and a crazy-looking man stood in the doorway wielding a gun. Complete chaos ensued and everyone was screaming and looking for a place to hide. The crazy man claimed that the YouTuber owed him money and he was there to collect it. He said if he didn't get the money right away, then there was going to be bloodshed. The YouTuber gently pushed me down behind the sofa and he began to slowly make his way to the crazy guy. He was trying to reason with him, saying that they could get everything resolved. Just as I was sure the man was about to pull the trigger and shoot the YouTuber right in the face, 2 male partygoers jumped him from behind and tackled him to the ground. This was a big guy, and they struggled to keep him down. Other guys began running over to help. At one point, I heard a loud bang and saw that the gun had been thrown across the floor. The police were called and the man was quickly taken into custody. It turned out that the man had never actually met the YouTuber before. He was just a crazy guy who watched his videos. It was such a relief that no one got badly hurt that night. I can definitely say it was one of the most eventful nights of my life. I met a famous female YouTuber through a friend of a friend. For the sake of privacy, I'll call her Rachel. I hadn't really followed her content before meeting her, but as we got to know each other, I would often help her find content for her vlogs and film them. I would even make appearances in them from time to time. I quickly got caught up in the lifestyle of vlogging. It was sometimes a challenge to find funny or interesting things to film for the vlog, and there was always the stress of getting the video out on time for the fans. But when things worked out how they were supposed to, it was such a rush. Rachel was always so appreciative of the help, and it was fun helping her do what she loved. My association with her even led to a decent following online, which led to sponsorships and other opportunities. I had already graduated from college, but my younger sister was a senior at the local state university. She told me that one of the fraternities was planning on throwing a massive party that Friday night, and she could definitely get Rachel and me in. She said she could guarantee that there was going to be some great content there, and we would have fun in the process. I pitched the idea to Rachel and she was all in. On the evening of the party, we got all dressed up and double-checked that we had any camera, hard drives, and memory cards that we might need at any point during the night. We then headed out to the campus. When we arrived at the fraternity house, my sister met us at the front door and we got in without any problems. She introduced us to a few of her friends and everyone was very friendly. The fraternity had hired some insane performers for the party. There were girls swallowing fire and men juggling knives. Everyone was drinking and laughing and having a great time. Because there was so much going on at the party, Rachel was able to get several clips and had enough content for a full vlog within the first hour of us arriving at the fraternity house. I asked if she wanted to go back home, but she said since we had come all this way, we might as well stay a while and enjoy ourselves, which I was on board with. Because my main reason for being at the party was to get content, I hadn't planned on drinking. But now that we had everything we needed, I decided it would be okay to have a drink or two. After all, Rachel was the one who would be driving us back, so I wouldn't be putting myself into any danger. I went to the drink table to get myself something. There was every kind of alcohol you could think of to choose from. I grabbed a red Solo cup and poured in ice, a little bit of vodka, and topped it off with some tonic water. As I finished, a very attractive guy came up to me. He looked to be around my age and wore a black hoodie with a backward baseball cap. He was very friendly and we began making small talk. He recognized me from Rachel's videos and was eager to talk about the behind the scenes of making her popular vlog. Our conversation was flowing effortlessly, and after a while he invited me to the dance floor to dance with him. The music was so loud we couldn't hear one another, but I was having a great time, swaying to the music as the guy swung me around. But as the night went on, I began to feel a little fuzzy and lightheaded. My thoughts became muddled and I felt like I needed to lay down. I scanned the room for any sign of my sister or of Rachel, but I didn't recognize anyone. The room felt so crowded and I began feeling claustrophobic. The boy with the backward hat was the last thing I saw before things went dark. When I woke up, I found myself in a dark room on cold, hard cement. I could hear the sounds of music and the party going on upstairs, and I remembered where I was. How had I passed out? I only had one drink and it wasn't enough to make me more than a little bit tipsy. I sat up and was relieved to see that my clothes were still on. I reached into my pocket and was relieved to find my phone inside. I unlocked it and saw that I had about a dozen missed calls from Rachel and a bunch more from my sister. I was about to return their call when all of a sudden I heard a door creak open and the footsteps of several people walking down the stairs. "She's right down here and out like a light," I heard one voice say. "Are you sure she won't wake up?" said another voice I didn't recognize. "There's no way with what I gave her," the other voice responded. My heart began pounding as I suddenly realized what they meant was about to happen. I quickly texted my sister and told her that I was in the basement and I needed her to come now. Just as the boy with the backwards hat and two other guys came into view, I heard the basement door slam open and pounding footsteps. Rachel and my sister quickly found me and took me back upstairs. We left shortly after and never returned. To this day, I believe I was drugged and that the boy with the backwards hat had meant to take advantage of me. I was invited to a party at one of the most famous YouTubers' lavish mansion. The YouTuber was a vlogger who often showed clips of his fancy house, but I had never been inside of it. I was lucky enough to score an invite, though, through mutual connections, and had been looking forward to the party for weeks. When the day finally arrived, I did my hair and makeup perfectly and bought a whole new outfit. I knew there was going to be a lot of pictures taken at the party and lots of people would be recording, so I wanted to look my absolute best. Because I knew we would be drinking, my friend and I took an Uber to the YouTuber's house. When we arrived, we were both absolutely speechless. It was even more beautiful than we could have ever imagined. We walked inside and were greeted by the YouTuber's personal butler. The house was packed full with many people I recognized from YouTube. People were drinking and dancing, and there was a disco ball casting different color lights across the whole room. It was completely mesmerizing. One of the coolest parts of the house was this giant room that had an indoor swimming pool inside of it. There were lots of people floating around on tubes while sipping on cocktails. My friend and I hadn't brought our bathing suits with us, so we weren't planning on getting in the pool. We started off the night by getting a couple drinks and milling about with friends. We even got a chance to meet the famous YouTuber who was just as nice as we had hoped for. We were on our third or fourth drink and feeling pretty tipsy when my friend suggested that we go swimming in the pool. I reminded her that we didn't have our bathing suits and the outfits we had on were brand new. But she just shrugged and told me we might not get another opportunity to come to this house, so we should take advantage of it. I was just drunk enough to agree with her. So we headed to the pool room, which was pretty crowded at this point with lots of other drunk people. I took off my jewelry and shoes and handed them off along with my purse and phone to a girl I knew I could trust to take care of them. My friend and I then grabbed each other's hands, counted to 3, and both jumped into the pool at the same time. We were laughing and splashing around when all of a sudden I felt something weird beneath my foot. The room was pretty dark, so at first I couldn't tell what it was. We were in water, which was about 6 feet deep, so I wasn't able to stand. I went underwater and forced myself to open my eyes so I could see what had touched me. When I saw what it was, I instantly panicked. It was a girl, face down, who was clearly drowning. I tried to grab the girl, but I wasn't strong enough. I went back above water and began screaming for help. A tall guy who was sitting nearby dove into the pool and helped me pull the girl out. I could tell that she was in bad shape and she wasn't breathing. The guy began administering CPR while I called 911. The paramedics arrived less than 10 minutes later and rushed her to the hospital. Unfortunately, because she had been without oxygen for so long, she was pronounced brain dead. The rumor was that she had been drunk and jumped in without knowing how to swim. Sadly, I don't think we'll ever know exactly what happened that night. Sleep.
Welcome to the Dark Somnium.
Nobody ever goes near Silent Lake, and people know better than to trespass on their land. Everyone avoids that body of water, even in summertime. Mothers warn their children about the risks. Teens dissuade each other from partaking in late-night skinny dips. It's for a good cause. Silent Lake is a dangerous place to swim in. Many people have drowned in it. 75 deaths in a couple hundred years. And there have been reports of kids and teens, and sometimes the naturally drunk homeless men falling victim to its waters, since the natives, who used to call this region their home, we don't want anymore. Silent Lake doesn't appear to be harmful at first glance. The surface is always smooth and always calm. There are no waves that disrupt the deep blue plain. It's so flat and clear that the sky is reflected off of it. There's a bunch of fish, too. It would have been the picture-perfect vacation destination, but it isn't. No one goes into that lake to swim or fish. I mean, there are some folks, people who moved here from the city, and rowdy daredevil teens who do, but they learn their lesson soon enough. Silent Lake is too calm, too quiet. Sometimes, the animals prowling in the woods that surround it stop howling and chirping. They all go out. It's so silent that our heads start pounding and our ears start ringing. We never have the courage to break the silence, this void. We know well enough what happens to those who dare be too loud while in the presence of the water. We don't want to be dragged down into the cold, dark depths by the hands of those who've learned. The lake is deathly silent, and it'll do anything to keep itself that way. As my breathing slowed, my heart relaxed, and my mind cleared, I began my song. The sweetest melody combined with my nectar-like voice. The sound created was like none other. A symphony of the gods, as I would like to call. Such harmony. Unfortunately, the serenity would not last. Something was watching from afar, a creature so hideous, so vile, so terrifying that whoever laid their innocent eyes on it would cower in the most paralyzing fear. This creature's eyes shone a bright yellow in the moonlight. Its unkempt feathered wings stood at the ready to take into the night, and its filthy blood-coated talons that had taken so many lives were ready to pounce the next victim. From where I was, everything seemed peaceful. It's as if the universe had finally achieved a motionless state. But this was strange, as I did not hear anything else but my own melodic symphony. I was unable to sense the demon approaching from behind. I paid for this ignorance. As the demon crept up behind me, I finally felt that something was off. I looked over my shoulder only to see it swoop down toward me from above. It was in this moment that all calmness left me and a tremendous fear took its place. My pupils dilated as adrenaline flooded my system. I started sprinting for my life as I dodged hurdles and obstacles. I could almost feel the creature's claws trying to grab at my flesh. When I almost tripped and nearly fell, I felt the most excruciating pain. One of the talons managed to catch my skin. Even with this pain, I kept running and running, hoping for a miracle to save my life. I felt every drop of sweat that found its way into my freshly made wound. I cringed as my back burned with ever more ferocity. My end finally came, as I lost my footing and tumbled to the ground. I had one final look at this monster as the talons closed their grasps around me. They cut into me like a sharpened saw through wood. No amount of struggling could free me from the monster's grasp. I stopped moving and accepted my fate. For what could I do? I was a mere cricket that was caught by an owl. The wind has fooled us. Nice breeze, huh? Manny said. I'd lived in the city where cool weather, such as the wind, was uncommon. Because of this, most were rather accepting of it. Nobody took any sort of caution or notice as the wind began to make itself at home, making its light conditions more and more apparent. It had corrupted the city with its calm, relieving charm, turning the unfamiliar touch into a welcomed pleasure. Once it had taken a hold of the land, it began to take its real form. The wind has irritated us. The usual day's breeze had turned itself into a constant pest. It would always blow objects over, carry away personal belongings with a tight tug. It was nothing dangerous or harmful, but there were moments that many began to question its place, becoming more of an unwelcome visitor. We hadn't seen calm, windless weather in a good number of weeks, which started to make some worry that we were going through a form of climate change. Those who studied the wind's accumulation urged everyone not to worry, that This was most likely a series of small storms that will pass soon. We should have left there. I should have left even sooner. The wind has controlled us. The gentle breezes had disappeared. What was left of the winds were its constant, powerful gales. I saw this when some decided to try to leave the city. Something about it had seemed unnatural. The gusts and gales seemed to be consistent, as it were more of a conscious spirit than just a heavy, chaotic weather. When everyone was indoors, safe from its forces, it seemed to calm down, sometimes going back to what appeared normal. The moment when one would try to go out of the town, the wind had returned, with power enough to sometimes blow vehicles off the road. This kept many in fear. Weather channels and reporters urged everyone to stay in shelter. It was beginning to look more and more like a hurricane of sorts. It still didn't seem right, even for a severe storm. The wind just scared us. The fear of the wind began with the experience of one man. He had weighed his car down, confident that it could resist the forces of the wind and make it out of the city safely. When all seemed to be calm, not a single breeze in the air, he ran for his vehicle. Before he could even reach the door, the wind returned. It didn't blow him away. It more so began to cut his skin, as if one had dragged lines of blades across his arms, legs, and face. He managed to make it back indoors before his injuries got too serious. This was mentioned on the final news broadcast in the city, and then we lost power. I got a message on the phone saying that rescue teams were on the way, that we'd be saved as long as we stayed indoors. I wish that had been true. The wind has mutilated us. My mind and memory are scarred. I had nightmares from what I saw the next few days. I wasn't even sure if I could call it wind anymore. Many ran outside, believing it had vanished, only for it to return when they were left defenseless. It cut them to the bone. The wind didn't immediately disintegrate its victims, but instead killed them slowly. I watched as others attempt to run for shelters in their clothes and skin. The muscles were stripped away from them. Every last piece of flesh was ripped from their bones, until nothing was left but bloody, dark red skeletons. I couldn't bear to watch their suffering anymore. I boarded my window at that point, but I still heard the screams. The screams that would go on for intervals for days and nights. The wind had destroyed us. I had resorted to hiding, occasionally peeking out through the slit in my boarded windows. I don't know if there are any others left in the city to look for. After others finally stopped trying to run, the wind had started to look for us. This sounds crazy, but I actually felt that it was some sort of living being at that point. It began to make its way into the homes and buildings. It would find one looking outside into the calm streets, and then it would move in, shattering the windows and cutting its victim like a knife. Since I had stopped looking at my windows, I don't think it ever saw me, but the screams of the others had gone silent. The wind had left us. I had run out of options. I was running out of food and water. I wasn't sure if rescue was coming at all, or if it had been destroyed a while ago. I decided I was just going to step outside, let the forces of the wind take me. As death was going to be eventual. As I opened the door and stepped outside, I was greeted with an alarming calmness. Outside was silent. I didn't feel so much as a breeze on my skin. I wasn't sure if the forces were toying with me or not, so I walked the ruined streets for a while. The streets were lined with broken glass, toppled cars, and scraped bones and skulls. There were sections of walls that had been completely painted with blood, almost in an organized manner. After almost an hour of no activity, no signs that the wind was still there, it seemed to me that it had vanished. It had assailed the city completely, only to leave after I heard everyone silenced. Crazy as it may be, I only have one speculation as to what could have transpired. The wind was, in some strange way, some twisted way, something living. It had come to my city with only the intent to massacre, and it had killed off every individual it could find. It never found me, so I suppose that makes me the lone survivor. I'm not joyful, though. I'm terrified, more so than ever. All because of a single question. If this is a living creature, and it's finished its desires here, where has it gone to now?